about this system is because we've used the custom attributes on the script controller and we have instance controllers to it, it actually doesn't need to be rebuilt every time. You don't need to go through this process. If I actually shift copy this, this control completely functions as it should on the new control. It's still connected to the values as you'd expect it to be. Because it's all instance controllers, everything copies perfectly. So you can actually now just go around, copy this, change the text to whatever you need it to be, and you've got a new control object, and you can place it in your scene however you want and size it up to however you need it to be sized for. Just to show what's possible, I'm going to show you a script that I've written relatively quickly that actually builds one of these control systems for you just by evaluating it. It's currently written as a function, and it's called facial control. And if I evaluate that, I get a whole new facial control system built. I'm just going to grab, sorry, I've got one on top of the other here. So it's right here. I'll just run it again so you see it actually run. And there's the whole system running. Because this isn't a scripting DVD, I'm not going to get into writing this specifically and explaining every portion of it, but I'm just going to break down quickly how it all works. First off, I've written it as a function, so I can easily call it from the command line just by typing facial control, open close parentheses. It'll build one for me. Building objects in Mac script is dead simple. A rectangle is rectangle, length, width, the name, and in this case I'm using a command called unique name, which makes sure that the name that's applied to it's unique, by putting a 01, 02, 03 after it. I'm color coding them, the wire color by default, so they come up as, in this case, blue for the rectangle, red for the circle. Parenting the circle to it, rotating it up, because when you first build it, it'll be laying flat on the world plane, and I want to rotate it up so it faces the front viewport. Locking transforms on the circle itself so that it can't move on the Z-axis, side to side, or front and back, sorry. Adding list controllers and script controllers. This section here basically builds the custom attribute definition that we're using and adds it to the script controller. This is where the script controller is currently be added, and I've just simply made a variable called sccolumn, which is holding the script controller, and I can add the custom attribute to the script controller, and there's the definition again. So just as we hand wrote it. Need to do a bit of controller work here for instancing the controllers over, and what I'm doing is I'm simply setting again. I've got the SE1L, it's not a 1 by the way, controller, and that's the one that's on the script controller. And I'm also setting the controller for the length, because remember we had to set the actual controller on the length before we could copy it over. And I'm setting those to a Bezier float, and I'm doing them all at once, so I can actually say this controller equals this controller, which equals this controller, and basically they all become equal to the same. I'm then setting it, 'cause as soon as you add this controller, unfortunately the rectangle pops down to a value of 0, and so I'm having to set the value to a value of 10. So in this case I'm actually just setting the custom attribute property, and it's automatically propagating to the length property in the actual rectangle because they're instanced. Same thing with the width, and then I'm instancing the again I'm setting controllers on the position X and Y and onto the custom attributes that need to be instanced to as well, setting those all at once. So there's the setup of all the controllers. I have the script pre-written in here as a string. You can see the quotes around it, and the word script just becomes a variable. And I'm taking the script controller .script, which is how you add the actual script to the script controller, and adding it to it. Bang! It's there you go. There's a really fast, simple way. The only thing I need to add now is the text object, which is just as easy. I can easily access the text object, its size properties, and what the actual text is of it, and place it above it. So now you can have ones that are really easy to make. You can actually just run it. You don't even necessarily have to instance it, and you can just run it again, and there it is. So from file to file, you can make them as fast as that now. I'm going to include this script with it so you actually have this. Once again, the only thing that would probably change in this whole thing is that we don't need, basically from about here down, and it would change slightly because all of this is just to try and limit the motion of this control, and in Mac's 8, we actually have a limit controller to handle that, and we'd just be adding the limit controller to the X and Y values and setting their max and min values to be that of the actual rectangle, and it would actually be a lot less lines. It'd probably only be a few more lines to set it up this way. There's a basic breakdown of script and how important it can be at saving time for rebuilding things and redoing things that you're going to be doing over and over again.